welcome back. After a long watch-along series of Neon Genesis Evangelion, I think it's time to ask new viewer and quote-unquote recruit to this fandom, Freddie, give me your hot takes on Evangelion. So, should we start with the characters? How do you feel about those?
Okay. So I started off very much enjoying the characters. And the thing is, as they've been more fleshed out and you gain more attachment to them, but then at the same time I became less excited to see them. And so by the end of the show, the only people I have like a genuine desire to see where they go are Shinji and Asuka.
So what took the shine? Because for me, on the second watch, there's a lot of cast that don't do a lot. But they seem to have important lines or thing to say throughout the series. So what took that away from you?
So when you're introduced to Misato as a character, you're introduced, again, as like a surface level thing. You're introduced to, a sort of as I would describe her as a hook. She's a attractive female lead who is a little bit fan servicey, but then it's like, it's the whole thing of you get sort of that hook, and then it's sort of you develop her character, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But then sort of by the end of the show, she's in like mourning, in like grief.
Yeah.
Over Kaji's death. And it's like, I'm not watching the show to be watching grieving characters.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. It's like the characters you're introduced to, while they are the same characters and they're just more expanded versions, it's like they're essentially different. If you were to write them then and now, they're different. And that's a thing of the show. People grow, people change.
Correct.
But again, it doesn't mean that who they grow into isn't the person. Like, if you enjoy watching them at the start, if you enjoy where they start off, you don't necessarily have to enjoy where they end up. And that's kind of... I like Misato. She's one of like my more preferred characters.
Yeah.
But I think where the show ended with her, I wasn't in a massively particularly like enjoyable spot with her.
Okay. For some context, where between the show and watching the end of Evangelion movie, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
See, Misato, with you fetching her up, I think her development's really good, and there's that point you mentioned in the watch-along where she goes from being this flip-floppy character to what the creators kind of need at the time to being much more defined, more you understand why she's in that job, how she got there. We obviously get the background from the history episodes. I don't know of a better term, like Evangelion Gaiden.
Yeah, like the retrospective. Well, not retrospective, but the sort of the precursor episodes.
And I think that development's good. I think for me, with some of the characters, it's all the NERV agents who say like 2 or 3 lines, and like I do like I do all the editing, so I've learnt characters' names because I'm like Googling for clips, or I'm Googling for bits and pieces, and there's a bunch of characters who don't really get named, like Makoto Hyuga, who's the guy with the glasses, who's at the end quite important. He's interesting and he's in it a lot, and he's like the touchstone character between like Misato and NERV HQ. How do you feel about characters like Retsuko or Gendo in development?
Retsuko, similar thing to Misato, but like as a more extreme level. I think when I was first introduced to her, I enjoyed her character more, and then at the end, I disliked her character considerably more.
So what changed that for you?
I don't know. It's just the whole thing of like, I think I probably put expectations, or like I saw her being something that then it's like, oh no, she's not that.
So what did you think they were building her to, and where did she go?
It wasn't even that. It was just that the character she was, it's like the thing she did, I don't know, didn't... Yeah, it's difficult. I would have to go into why I wanted the show to like cover some slightly different topics, but it would be
Okay.
something that I feel like the authors don't agree with, so the authors aren't going to do that.
Okay. So what are those topics that you
Hmm.
felt they were going to touch on and didn't get there?
To try and boil it down as much as I can, really simply, it feels like the authors are saying everybody is essentially underneath it the same. They do it kind of comes up repeatedly in like because you go like, oh, Asuka basically realizes she's the same as Shinji.
Hmm.
Misato realizes she's basically the same as Shinji. Um, you've got the whole thing of like Rei is literally Yui, but with a different soul. But hey ho, at the moment there doesn't seem to be a beyond the genetic link. There isn't a tenuous link into personality between Gendo and Shinji, but maybe it'll be covered. I don't know. And then it's like I was hoping Retsuko was going to be like this strong, independent character, somebody who was like, I just love work, because everybody else, like the rest of the show, is like it focuses an awful lot on like interconnections, and having a character who is devoid of that suddenly gives it contrast, which I
Okay.
really, really liked. I liked having a character who was so focused in something they didn't care about the rest. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, but then it's like she's having this like affair fling thing with Gendo. I was going to say Genji,
Hmm.
and I feel like it takes away that. But then the thing I was thinking of is probably I've put that on her. I've kind of gone, I've seen this and gone, this is you, as opposed to it being, as I said before, they should have told me this is her. So that sort of false expectation might be on me, but at the same time, I feel like it devalues the contrast I said before.
Right.
It gave contrast, and here is a strong character who breaks the mold of everything else you've given
Hmm.
us. And then it's like, no, she fits the mold, I'm afraid. But as I said, that feels like that's an author putting their view in their work,
Yeah.
and I can't really change that. I'm not the author.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would. This is why I said I would love them to have explored a slightly different thing of having characters who break molds,
Yeah.
characters who they do things that you as an author disagree with, but then yeah, you get into the whole. It's like trying to write a character who's smarter than the author.
Yeah. Which is
Yeah.
that makes me think with some of your explanation. It makes me think of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So the author's name has completely just flown out my brain, and I'm sure JoJo's fans will happily correct me.
Because that's the whole
But one
internet,
of
I'm
the
afraid.
one of the conversations he has in an interview is he purposely tried to put the main characters into impossible to win situations, and
Mm.
then when you watch it as a viewer, the answers to those situations are all ridiculous, and that's kind of the JoJo thing, isn't it? It's like
Mm.
it's over the top, it's ridiculous. Like they create these scenarios, and then literally it's like, oh, here's the Uno reverse card or the big red device winning button.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how it works. I think, interestingly, your explanation of Evangelion and
Mm.
Retsuko as a character is exactly what the authors want people to do with Evangelion, and it seems to be about the human experience. There's a quote from a Stoic from like the 4th century, and it's something
Mm.
along the lines of I am human, nothing human is alien to me, which probably in a reductive way goes to
Mm.
your comment of, well, everyone's the same deep down, but it's about the perspectives and interactions in between things. And I agree, Retsuko, I think the things you say about her are true on both sides of the coin, and that she has tried to be a strong, career-driven, focused woman, a cat mum because she
Mm.
loses one of the cats. And I
Yeah.
get it. I get it that you want to see that, and it's like Gendo is kind of like the actualized version of the Shinji we first meet. So, like, he's the despair Shinji, I suppose, if I'm being dramatic. And
Mm.
then the Shinji we get is more like. He's the reverse because instead of cutting off his ties and being like the master manipulator, he's like, actually, I'm better if I make these interconnections, that if I have friendships or co-worker relationships, because some of his interactions aren't just friend based, are they? He's actually got later on the boundaries of like, oh, I work alongside you so I can be a civil human being to you, but I don't have to like you. Because that's when he has like, my go-to's the Mr. Kaji and the watermelons, isn't it? And that's my thing. I'm the watermelon guy. They have that conversation, and he's like, when you look after things, you actually learn the things you don't like. And I quite like that reflective nature. How do you feel as like Kaji versus Retsuko?
Okay, there's a bunch of ways I could answer that.
I'm happy to
in
listen.
terms of them both, like in terms of them both being there and sort of contrasting each other, I appreciate it, but I feel like it's not needed because, again, as I said before, the show focuses on interpersonal connectors. But then it's like if you have Kaji as a sort of a mirror to Retsuko, because Retsuko being very trying to be like as work focused as she can, and Kaji seems to very much be personal focused, but unneeded. But it's there. I suppose it's there like a highlight. It's not the bulk of the material, but it's good. If I were to answer how I feel about Kaji, it feels a bit like, I think something you were saying earlier to me, he feels like a sort of an under-realized character.
Okay.
He's not in there as much as some of the other characters. He's not a minor character, but I don't think he's a major character either. He's like somewhere between. He's like on his way to being a major character, sort of on the level of,
Masato.
Retsuko, Misato, possibly Gendo, but he's like not quite there. So he's like a middling character.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if you've any done any screenwriting or anything like that. So you've got primary characters, secondary characters, and then tertiary characters, and then tertiary characters kind of bleed into background characters. For me, Ryoji's definitely a secondary character. He's got too much stuff going on to be in the background, even though his character's meant to be. I liked this description from Anno. So lots of fans are likening him to James Bond for all this.
Yeah.
But Anno went, actually, Ryoji's the Bond girl. Like, he's the hot piece of ass for Masato, not Masato's his like female counterpart. He's meant to be the Bond girl, like sneaking around.
It's a bit of a funny one because you could say that everyone is a protagonist in their story.
Yeah.
In Kaji's story, he probably is he is Bond. He's Mr. James the Bond. However, I think in the story we are presented in Evangelion, he is the Bond girl.
That point, which there's so many quotes in life at the moment. It's like, people are fighting battles that you don't see, so always be kind. Everyone's the hero in the same story. No matter who you are, everyone sees you differently. It's all about perspective. This is what that show's about. And clearly, like, Shinji's our surrogate into this world. He's the primary character. Even though we do flip a little bit to Asuka. Asuka's sort of secondary character / what they call it, Jutagonist, the second hero. And obviously we start that they've got a mirror, haven't they? In that Shinji, sad Shinji into boss Shinji. I need a better term, but this is conversation on the fly, and we start with boss Asuka into sad Asuka. Like, that's their mirror of personality. And I know we talked about me being quite reductive that they're the same character. Is there anything in the plot besides that expectation in characters that you were hoping was explored, wasn't explored enough?
I was about to say, Rei should have been. I would have kicked her down those stairs.
Rei should have died.
I'd have loved to explore that timeline.
What, the Rei 4 timeline? So we get an extra Rei clone. Yeah.
God, that would be a very just seeing how, like, I killed her, but then she's back. How that would have changed the whole story.
Is it wrong? I just had this idea pop in my head. Just tell me how you think. You know the brand Ray-Bans?
Yes.
For sunglasses. Imagine a brand of glasses called Ray Clones, and they're Ray-Bans that are stylized to look like Ray. So, like, the top of them are blue, and then they come into like the face tone, or they're all shaped like Gendo spectacles. How would you feel
my brain
about a
wouldn't.
pair of Rei clones?
That would actually, I imagine, so you can get anime watches.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know one of my friends actually was looking into getting I think it's a Seiko Evangelion watch.
Oh god, I hate to think how
They-
much this is.
Oh boy, yeah, they haven't been produced in a while. Anyways,
Yeah.
but I imagine what you've just said could very much be something like that.
Yeah.
Get a brand of glasses. Apart from my understanding,
Rei
most of them are
clones by
owned.
Ray Bans, yeah.
Well, it doesn't even have to be by Ray-Bans, but that would be a very nice tie-in.
Yeah.
But
Rays.
Rays. Ooh. Yeah, it would be something like that, and they would probably sell for a lot.
Probably.
A lot. How would I feel about them? I wouldn't own them, but good for you. It's a bit like the glass, a bit like the watches. I don't wear watches, but if you like watches,
I sent it to you. There's an Asuka Fender guitar, and it's in
yes,
the Unit 2 colours. Second hand, it's about £2,500 to £3,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Back onto topic. Is there any things that you expected the show to do that it didn't go to, or it went too far, didn't go far enough?
The way that I watch anime, I think, as I've said in a previous episode, I very much want them to tell me a story. So
yes.
Where it goes, how far it goes, etc., all of this, I leave up to the anime. If it wants to go down a weird, wacky, wabbit hole, go for it. I've certainly watched a few anime like that. I'm there for the ride. I'm invested at that point. Although, as I said, unless the characters did like a strange U-turn, I would have become less and less invested. It's like genuinely so we had a thing where one episode I skipped ahead. I know, and then that really opened up Pandora's box for you. But at this point, if you were to go, oh yeah, there's another 13 episodes, man, I think it would be like I would need to be in a state of somewhat bored to be able to then carry on picking it up.
Oh, okay.
It's, as I said, the only two characters I really have like any desire to. Well, I mean, Misato, I'd like to see her come back, but it's like it's a case of that. Yeah, her and Asuka are in a similar position. If they're both in like this sad spot, I don't want to turn up. You don't watch TV to be like, yes, I wish to watch the sadness. Please.
Don't know. Game of Thrones was quite popular, and
now I'm one of probably the 3 people on Earth who didn't watch Game of Thrones. I didn't care for it.
Yeah, I got
although
up to
it was great fun listening
5.
to everyone else talk about it. Yeah,
I got up to the end of season 5, and my sister is a big reader, so she's read all the books that are available. She's big into Harry Potter, and I used to give her a lift to work because we worked in different places but at the same location, and she was furious at the TV show changes. A little bit. I wouldn't say you were furious. Like, I remember when we started this and we ideated the podcast / YouTube channel, and you were like, I really would like to watch Evangelion. People talk about it. And I could tell we reached like a point and your enthusiasm was noticeably lower. Whereas I think my enthusiasm was like, maybe because of counselor brain, right? Maybe because it's something I've studied after watching the show. There's been a big gap. And for me, it's like, wow, what a curious animation about human interaction and connectivity. And Freddie's like, God damn, this show's just about human interaction and connectivity. I came for the robots! Where's the robot?
Robots would be nice. As it sort of became that I became less enthused by the characters in their current state, my mind then sort of wandered into the idea of what I would have liked to have seen from the show in a sort of where I would have personally taken it. As I've said before, I am someone who believes in like the idea of like the trilogy of things: body, mind, soul.
Yeah.
Whereas again, the anime seems to focus on a duality, which is perfectly fine. But I would have loved to have seen things done again, things that break the mold established. But it's the author's creation. It's his desire. Yeah. And everything fits the mold. And it's, again, when I sort of think about that, I'm like, oh, it could have done this. It's like, oh, man, it could have done a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
Was part of that thing for you, please add more giant robots?
It doesn't even have to be giant robots, but giant robots would be nice.
Small robots.
I mean, again, going with the trilogy, I would have liked to have seen some. So you've got angels, which are entirely alien, correct?
Kind of, yeah. I understand where you're going. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got the Evas, which are half human, half alien,
Yep.
or half angel, I should say.
Yeah.
Extraterrestrial, beyond the Earth.
Mm.
I would have very much liked to have seen, again, this is something that would have been very interesting to explore, the idea of you create something a bit like an Eva, but has no angel in it whatsoever.
Interesting. And I think one of the things that Evangelion, I think it does break the mold in the fact that it starts off as conceptually a Monster of the Week TV show, like Angel to Angel to Angel. But then the way it pushes the characters to you, the audience, and some of the themes it explores ahead of the time, and there's some subversive character development that occurs. So the interactionary stuff is quite important for me. You can disagree with that. We're proving Anno right by having perspectives that differ, but deep down, maybe we're coming from the same point of we've watched Evangelion, and then we go back to my previous conversation about where you stand around a cow.
Returning back to what I said, I then explored ideas of what I'd have liked to see. And, I would have liked to have seen that. I didn't see that. Not to say that drained my enthusiasm further, but it.
How about this, Freddie? Maybe we get popular enough. You can talk to Anno, and I know they've said they're never making Evangelion again after Rebuild 4.0. Maybe you could crowdfund the Fred build Evangelion.
I wouldn't want it to be touching the Evangelion IP would do it any service. It'd probably be best if I just had its own thing. There are plenty of other anime that are close enough.
Fred Genesis Evangelion.
I was going to say that. I think I might get copyrighted for that. Or sued.
Nah. Those words aren't individualistic enough to carry copyright. I'm kind of curious to hear what your other perspectives are on what things hit, what things didn't hit for you. Was there something else missing for you?
I think Gendo should have been explored a little more because, so in the sense that he sort of alluded to being a bit of an antagonist. And I do think it's actually quite clever that there isn't an actual outright antagonist, because you've got Seal doing Seal things, very secretive. It's like they have an agenda, but we don't really know much about it.
Right.
We know that it probably wouldn't be good, but at the same time, they're the people who funded NERV and everything. So Gendo, as far as I'm aware, is trying to subvert Seal's plan for his own gains, which is causing a lot of problems. And he is shown in the show to be somewhat of an antagonist. But they're kind of the main villains, because as it's sort of explored, you go, oh, the angels are the sort of the big evil. And it's like, well, are they? Because it seems to be they're just trying to get back to, the angel that they've got pinned underneath Tokyo 3. It's like if you were to try and, launch a rescue mission from for people, does that make you a bad person? Are you the villain?
Yeah.
Are you the villain? It's very much then you need to explore the idea of what happens if they get said angel out.
Right.
If they got, because I believe it's meant to be that it's shown to be Lilith underneath the yes, which I think at first they sort of allude to it being Adam, and then it turns out that's wrong. But anyways, if they were to get Lilith out of where they are holding Lilith, pinned in place with a big spear, what then? If they just leave, then they are not the bad guys.
Yeah.
If it turns out they are going to leave and then just destroy the Earth, they're the bad guys. So it very much then depends on what they will follow it with. At the moment, they're sort of an ambivalent, not ambivalent, but they're neither good nor evil. They're a force of nature. You don't hate the hurricane. The hurricane isn't good or evil. It just is a thing. Even if it's humans are making it happen, that just makes the people who are making it happen evil. But
the sliding scale of responsibility, I suppose.
Yeah.
Toji would actually be a good example of, because he's furious at Shinji because he thinks he hurt his sister when she was collateral damage, but he had to be piloting the Eva to cause that collateral damage. So it's like the butterfly effect, a little bit like the causality may not have been malicious, but the outcomes can be devastating.
Yeah. It does feel like Gendo is purposefully kept. When I say he's kept in the dark, I mean him as a character isn't being shown to the viewer. And you get to the end of the show and he's still not really explored all that much. So in the MCU, you've got Thanos, who is the villain,
Yeah.
but he is shown to be, what he is doing is from a good-willed intention, like good intentioned thing.
Yeah.
He's not just, cackling evil villain who then does evil villainous things. He's like, this is my solution to a problem that I foresee. I'm trying to prevent a larger catastrophe by doing a smaller evil.
Wiping out 50% of the universe, yeah. Small.
There's so many easy holes you can pick even in that.
Yeah.
But anyways, the
Trolley
idea,
dilemma.
small evil, he's preventing a greater evil, which is, arguably a good thing, which makes him a very interesting villain. Gendo just doesn't seem to be doing that, but we don't know. It's not explored. Something about the characters, I think you were saying earlier, I'm not sure if it's been discussed as of yet on the episode, but some of the characters come and go, because like at the beginning of the show, we're introduced to a lot of Shinji's friends.
Yeah.
NPC cameraman,
Toji.
You're
AKA
introduced
Hop Along, yeah.
Yeah. You've also got Asuka's best friend, the girl who then has an interest in Toji.
Class rep, yeah.
Yeah. And, you've got a whole classroom of other people that, again, aren't really explored, but they're very much background characters. I'm surprised they even have faces, honestly.
Yeah. Exposition teacher, yeah.
Yeah. And then at the end, so in the very final 2 episodes, you're introduced to a bunch of characters who are a sort of similar level to, or even lesser than them, arguably, but it feels like they were meant to have more of an important role. So you've got, I forget the name of the character you mentioned, the guy with glasses who works at NERV HQ.
Hugo.
Yes. People like him are suddenly very important. You go, when were you that important?
Yeah.
Why have all the characters who were important in the beginning, they're gone now. Don't even look. They're gone.
Yeah.
These characters who you saw them doing their laundry, little else.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on them. They're important. If it were a river, you've suddenly you've cut it off at the third way of the river and then gone, here is the river delta.
Yeah.
There's a bit in the middle I feel like we're missing. You don't go stream river delta because why have the other characters sort of not there, but these background characters in the important role,
right?
Could have probably doubled up on them, but that was something I think should have been possibly ironed out.
That is a thing for me where some of the lines could have been just anywhere, and you could have just had people in seats kind of thing, or implied the size of the world, rather than... It feels like a bad DM playing D&D, and he just
Yeah.
He's created NPCs to talk to NPCs to talk to NPCs, when really, you could have just had that one character and have 6 or 7 answers to questions that could be rolled for to progress a plot, or to send them be like, well, that's all I've got. Maybe if you go to the mountain, you'll get more answers. Send them to the location, and you could have had Gendo doing some more of the transportative dialogue where he moves people around, which would then push him slightly more to the fore and give him not necessarily villainous tones, but it's like, well, I'm the leader and I need you to go here and this needs to happen, that needs to happen. It's all part of the urgency and the... Allow me to say that again. The agency and the services that we do in regards national security, because they are basically the UN of the UN but privatized, and they could have maybe done something like that. Would that have been something that have made you happier?
Suppose it would have dealt with 2 birds in 1 stone. As out of watching it, I feel like it wouldn't have changed my opinion that much, but it might have changed my opinion at the end of it a bit. So
right. Well, I was going to say, can we wrap it up with talking about the ending briefly? How do you feel as the transition occurred from how so we shift from episode, I want to say 16, to a more brutal narrative styling, and then in episodes, is it 24, 25, the last 2 episodes, 23, 24, I've not looked at the numbers sheet for a couple of weeks, but in the last 2 episodes, when we shift to candidate interviews / psychological evaluation, how did you feel about that and the explanations provided?
Felt a bit like a fever dream. honestly.
Maybe that
I suppose
explains why Rei had that slice of toast when she was late for school.
I don't think that was a genuine Ray, but
Yeah.
hey ho, felt like quite out of place. Have you ever? I don't know if you do this. So some animes you binge.
Yeah.
Some animes you watch weekly,
Yeah.
and doing that can give you two very different feelings on anime.
Okay.
And so, like, if you're watching an anime weekly, every time, say, if you have if the main character's doing something that kind of angers you, like on like a quite basic level, like there's something about it that you fundamentally disagree with.
Okay.
Say if you had an anime where the main character going like through a berserk bit where he's just in like just a frothing rage. He's essentially being the Hulk, but no, he doesn't discriminate between good and bad. He's just
So he's being the
destroying
Hulk,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I use that. And that goes on for say like 3 or 4 episodes, and you're like, you are doing so much damage to like everything you've built up and everything like that. You can tell like you are making so much work for yourself. You should have just calmed down. It's like if you're watching it weekly, you have chance to calm down between episodes, and then when you go back to it, it's like you get angry again.
Right.
But then that week break, those 6 days between you watching each episode, sort of it leaves your mind, you calm down a bit, and then when you come back to it. And then when you sort of look back at it in retrospective, you're like, oh, maybe at the end of it, he then has like the character has a realization, makes up for it. And you're like, oh, okay, that was character growth. And because as you were watching it, you managed to get through it by having these long breaks. If you binge it, you don't get that.
Correct.
It just builds and builds and builds. And then it might feel like the payoff at the end isn't worth it. And that can give you two very different feelings.
Yeah. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, being sort of like whiplashed, feeling a bit like a fever dream. I think I was slightly ill on top of it, which definitely did not help my sort of mental state. Being like, okay, you've got a little bit of a cold. Not much. You can still, function in society, but you might just be a little bit groggy. Here's a weird fever dream episode. Yeah.
Is that my fever dream? Is that your fever dream?
Yeah, it's like, am I feeling this way about the episodes because I'm ill? Do the episodes feel weird? I feel like maybe if I'd had to watch it weekly, I might have had a very different opinion on it. I don't know if this is controversial. I didn't mind the final episodes.
Okay,
on a scale of like 1 to 10, 1 being I despise them, 10 being I love them, so 5 being about neutral, I'm probably at about like just below 6.
Okay.
Possibly 6. So like positive.
5.8. Too high,
too
low? 5.8, yeah.
What's the point of 1 to 10 if I then go, I will have as many numbers as I like?
I'm going to use a percentage marker now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn it to 58. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. But if you would say 50% is, neutral. Yeah. 58% is probably pretty bang on. Yeah. I didn't dislike it. It was an overall positive thing.
But would you prefer to be a 2 out of 10 and hated, or a 9 out of 10 and be loved? Which would you prefer?
Oh, now this would be.
You don't have to pick, but would you rather be a 5 or a 2 or a 9? You don't. 2 and 9 are the same option. Category A, 5. Category 2, B.
Now,
2B.
as far as 2B.
Loved or hated?
Can I choose option C? Can I just not exist?
Which is again one of the themes of Evangelion, but I'm listening. Choosing to neither live nor die.
No, there's many answers. I believe you should always. I think everything should always be in option B, both commercially.
Loved or hated.
Yeah, from commercial aspect, you should always do that. For a personal aspect, I think you'll experience more out of life if you choose option B. I don't know. Yeah, it's just ending an anime on, to use your thing of option A. It's like it's throughout the show. It's been option B. It's been ups, it's had its downs, and then it ends on a meh.
Okay. Well, talking of endings, end Freddie's hot/cold takes, and then I've got other questions. So maybe we come back to those. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Freddie, for helping me. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, you may see us next time.